All about listings. I would love to talk to you about not only how to enter a listing, of course, into Prospector Plus, but also all of the resources and helpful items here that can assist you. The first resource, if you will, is called the MetroList Information Center, and the name basically says it all. It is chock full of all kinds of MetroList information, from training videos to our training calendar to MLS rules, compliance, and in addition to that, helpful forms and documents. In specific listings, we're talking about those profile sheets. I'll walk you guys through what those look like, how you can leverage those for your business. And then also we'll of course go in, we'll enter a listing, we'll go in and revise a listing. I'll point out what the revise menu looks like, how to add in photos, attach documents, your virtual media. And then if we have some time, I'll take us quickly into SupraWeb, where we can check out our lockbox settings, email notifications, and even run some great reports. So let's go ahead, you guys. I'm just going to jump right on into my MLS dashboard today to start us off. Now, today we are working within the Prospector Plus system, which is one of our essentials. So it's up here in the upper left corner right when you enter the dashboard. If we have some time, again, I'd love to take you into SupraWeb. You can enter into SupraWeb and Prospector Plus here from the dashboard as well. Now, before we do that, I want to also take you guys into the MetroList Info Center, or the Information Center. We lovingly call this MIC for short. So I'll take you guys into the MIC and I'll show you how to access this resource web page. So if you ever get held up or you just really want to leverage those profile sheets that I shared with you today, you'll know where to go. So there's a few ways to get to the Info Center. Since we're on our dashboard, I'm going to go ahead and just go right in from here. But when we get into the main system, I'll also show you how to access from Prospector Plus too, just in case you find yourself in that system as well. Okay, so what is the Info Center? As I said before, it's chocked full of all kinds of MetroList information. Now today, we're specifically talking about listings, so I'd love to point out the listing resources that we have available here in the Info Center. At the very top of the page, you're going to notice many quick links. We'll talk about which ones tie into listings, but I also wanted to just scroll down just a little bit more. I like this map here, and it gives us such good perspective because you guys, now from the Prospector Plus system, we're not only able to enter listings into our red area here, which is this red area, by the way, is all of MetroList service area. But because of our special reciprocation agreement with our Bay Area MLSs and associations, essentially now I can list, if I wanted to, from the Prospector Plus system right into Napa without having to single sign on into all of these other MLSs, which we previously would have had to do. So again, you are able to list right from the same system, even if it's not within our primary red areas here. You can list in all of these other counties surrounding. So today we'll talk about entering a listing into Sacramento County, but just note, if you have a friend or a family member who lives in Santa Cruz or Santa Clara County, you can also assist them with listing their home right from the system that you're familiar with, Prospector Plus. This MLS area here, just not to go down too much of a rabbit hole, but this is a completely different MLS system than we're accustomed to. So before, when you entered listings outside of MetroList, you might have had to learn how to use a new system to do it. So that's the beauty of having Prospector Plus at our fingertips now. Now, when it comes to listing resources, what do we have here in the MIC? Well, forms and documents are going to be super duper helpful. These are the profile sheets that I spoke to at the beginning of the training. So we'll check those out in just a moment. But I also wanted to show you guys as well, you have a digital rule book. So this is a copy of the MLS rule book right here. You can available digitally, so you can quickly reference the rules if you have any questions. Also, do be mindful when you guys are entering outside of MetroList primary regions that you familiarize yourself with the rule of each individual MLS, because all the rules tend to be just a bit different. Now, forms and documents are where I'd like to take you next from the Info Center. And I can get there from using this big blue button here that reads Forms and Documents. There's even a button at the top as well. So there's many different ways to get there. This is just one of the ways, but let's go ahead and check out the Forms and Documents. In specific, those listing profile sheets are what we're going to talk about today. So I'm just going to give this a click and it'll take us right to all those listing profile sheets. Now, what is a listing profile sheet and is it required? So a listing profile sheet essentially is available for each property type: residential, land, mobile home, income, etc. These forms, you guys, can be printed. Some can be filled in and then printed digitally. But what I love about these forms is that this is your listing input page in Prospector Plus. However, it's on paper, which means you could do a bunch of stuff with this. You could go in to the listing appointment and you can take this residential profile listing sheet with you. You can fill out all the characteristics of the home so that when you come back to your computer to enter the listing, you've got everything not only in the correct order that it will be entered into the MLS, but you have all that information handy for you. Now, good rule of thumb, and we'll talk about this more when we go into enter a listing, but good rule of thumb is everything in red, of course, is required, meaning that you can't submit your listing without filling in those red fields. Do be mindful though, everything in black, although not required, will help you market your property to its fullest potential. So I always encourage everyone to be as thorough as possible when they're entering listings. You want your listings to be able to be found via the multiple different searches that agents will be using to look for your listing. So the more information you put in here, the better justice you're going to do for your seller, and hopefully the more money you'll make because you'll get that listing sold quickly. Okay. Now, what's also great about this form, I want to scroll down just a hair here to the bottom, and I'll let you guys leverage these however you'd like. But one great thing that I love about this form, and as I mentioned before, is this form required? Well, not for MetroList. MetroList does not require you to use this form. We just simply provide this form to you as an avenue to help enhance your listing experience. But what I love about this is at the bottom, if you have your seller sign this, if your broker signs this, and you yourself sign and date this form, this now becomes a legal binding document. And this is just further protection for you. So if, for example, your seller signs it, you sign it, and your you give that a signature. If there's any changes made on the form, if your seller tells you, hey, actually, the approximate square footage is this number, go ahead, and if you change anything here, if they've already signed everything, just have them initial by the change, just to, protect yourselves. But I absolutely think this is a wonderful way if you haven't taken a listing before, or if you're wanting to familiarize yourself with what's required and what fields you're going to be inputting for entering a listing. This will be so helpful to you. Okay, so this is just simply the residential profile sheet. And remember, these are available for every property type that you'll be entering your listing into. Okay. Now, I'm going to take us back to the top of the info center. Remember, I got here from simply clicking on this blue button for forms and documents, or the forms and documents button at the top of the page. Okay, and this is again the information center. Wealth of knowledge here, you guys, not just for listings, but in specific, that's what we're talking about today. Okay, now let's go ahead and pop right on into Prospector Plus. I just want to point out briefly while we're here that there is another avenue into the information center. So if you do catch yourselves in Prospector Plus, there's a link right here for the info center. And furthermore, at the very top of the page, under the links tab, you see me hovering over links? I can actually access forms and docs from here. So like I said, many different ways to get to the same place. Hopefully you'll remember at least one of them after today's training, but forms and documents can be accessible from Prospector Plus as well. Okay. All right, guys, you guys ready to enter a listing? Let's get the ball rolling here. Now, as I'm hovering over the listings tab, a couple of things to note here. You may notice that your listings tab may not look exactly like mine. There could be a few reasons why, but your broker controls your access rights to MetroList, meaning that they control your access to enter and revise, modify listings. So if you're seeing something here that maybe you're not seeing enter new listing, or you're not seeing the ability to view or revise your listings, have a conversation with your office manager or your broker and let them know. Chances are it could be maybe an office policy, someone in your office enters your listings for you, or maybe it was a simple oversight. Okay, but I'm going to go ahead and first things first, I'm going to click on enter new listing. Okay, Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of training, you have the ability not only to enter listings now in the Metro List area, which is Amador County, all the way down to Yuba County, but now you have the ability to enter your listings into other MLSs right from this page. So if I wanted to, I could go right into enter a listing in Napa, and the system itself is going to look and feel just the same, which is so much better than having to go in and learn a whole nother MLS listing just to help a friend out, right? To sell their home in another county. So today I just want to take us right on into Sacramento County. That's the example I'll use for this training today. And then we're going to click on continue. Okay. Now, I'm going to share with you a few time-saving tricks here, if you will. The first one is I always encourage you guys to search the county records. So this property type I'm listing today will be residential. It's in Sacramento County. We just selected that. Now, do yourselves a favor. If you want a lot of this stuff to pre-fill and you want to save yourself some time, search those county records. Okay, so I'm just going to tap right on that and click search county records. Okay. And then what I'm going to do, you guys, is I'm typing in either the address, the APN, or the owner information to identify this property. In this case, we'll start with the address. So 2003 Howe Avenue is what I'm going to use for this example today. Be mindful of your suffix, you guys. If you type it into the street name, you could have some discrepancies here. So do, plug all of the categories into the specific field as noted. And then go ahead and click search. Here's why I love to do this. Well, right away, I'm seeing who owns this property. Yes, this is the Board of Realtors for Sacramento. I use this as the example just in case something accidentally goes live. It's not someone's actual home. But this is where you'll verify, hey, yeah, the owner information looks good. They do indeed own this home. That's perfect. Now I can click on select. Okay, and once I click select, watch what will happen. Okay. Boom. So my APN, my street information, and my address, that's all filled in. There's even going to be more information once we get to the listing detail page that will pre-populate for us from tax data. So second step here is to place PIN on map. This is a very important step, and here is why. Many agents will be looking for listings using the map or the radius search. Those are two very popular searches here in the MLS. So do confirm that the address for your listing has been successfully mapped. You should see a nice pin over the property itself. If you see any discrepancy here or something doesn't look right, you can always call into our tech team and they can assist you with adjusting this pin in the back end of the system. Again, if there's something that's not looking quite right. But big thing indicator here is to see that the address was successfully mapped and now this listing can be found using the radius and map search. So that'll take us to continue to listing input. And this is a great place to pause here because I did see your question, Greta, so I'm going to go ahead and just answer that before we jump into this listing detail page. I'm going to read your question aloud if that's okay, so everyone can benefit because it's a good question. Do you recommend we have our docs signed before entering? So I'm assuming you're referring specifically to the listing profile sheet document that I just showed you. Yeah, so if that's the case, I would suggest that you do have that signed prior to entering your listing. Now, as far as all of your contract forms through CAR. Those forms we'll talk about in just a sec, but yes, for the listing profile sheets, have your seller sign it before you get it live, just to protect yourself. All right, so as I said before, we looked at the listing profile sheet. Here's the digital version of it. This is what you'll be looking at when you enter a listing. And the cool thing is you can see everything in red, of course, is required. Everything in black, not required, but I highly, highly suggest you are as thorough as possible entering your listing. The more thorough you are, the easier it is for your listing to find. And of course, you'll make money. Your seller will be happy at the end of the day. Okay. Now, some of this information pulls through from tax. You can see my APN, my phone number, or my street number. And then if we continue to scroll down, I just want to point out keynotes of the listing input page because there's a lot of info here, you guys. So I'm going to point out the really important stuff. You'll notice that your listing will start off as an active status, okay? Now, if there are any special listing conditions is what we refer to them as, such as a short sale, foreclosure, notice of default, HUD owned, etc., you can actually select those here. You can select up to 5. But if your listing is just a regular no fuss active listing, there is a none button. This is a required field, so you'll just select none, meaning there are no special listing conditions tied to your active listing. Now your listing service, this is a required field, and you'll notice some portions of the listing input page will actually have links here, and this one in specific is taking me to the rule book. So this is a great indicator for you if you're not 100% sure what your listing service is, okay? Full service, limited, or entry only. Again, if you're not quite sure, more than likely many of you will be full service. But again, you can always reference these rule books here to take you to that section in the book where you can figure out which service level you are. All right, listing price. Just be careful of your zeros here, right? This is 300,000, this is 3 million. So those zeros are very important when entering a listing. Now your listing period, what are your listing period dates and what does that reflect? Well, we talked about the listing profile sheets earlier. Those are simply just a guide, if you will, to allow you a little safety net when you enter your listing. However, your listing period is going to reflect the dates of your contract. So that contract that you have your seller sign, the start date and the end date will be here, listing date and expiration date. Now, many times, I hear this all the time, you guys sign your contracts, your buyer has a little bit of work to do. Maybe they need to paint up some touch-up paint on the walls. Maybe they need to install new carpeting, patch up a section of the fence that's falling down. You know, there's so many little things that need to be done before we go on market to the MLS. So if the listing contract itself is signed, say we signed it today and we just want to get those dates in here and get this ready to rock and roll, we can. And you can leverage what's called an on-market date. And this future on-market date allows you to place your listing future on-market date up to 120 days. So for example, if I sign today, my seller says, hey, Kristen, you know, this weekend we're going to do all the work that needs to be done. I think we're going to be ready to list Monday morning. Great. So then you've got your contract dates in reflecting today, about 90 days out, right? Typically that's what they are. And then you're going to put in Monday's date. Again, you can do this out 120 days. And what that does is it gets your listing requirement in that you have all of your listing information in within 3 calendar days, and you're simply not going to go live until the date that you select here. And the system will automatically place the listing live for you, which I love. I have some agents who come in and they say, you know, my seller's not ready. I put the listing out 120 days on the on-market date. And I come in here and when they give me the green light and I change the date myself, that's absolutely okay too. But this on-market date is such a great tool to have in your toolkit, if you will, when you're taking on a listing. I'm going to scroll through some of these fields, you guys. Some of them, you know, are just too much to talk about and not enough time. So I want to really point out the key things here. And before I keep scrolling, I want to just answer this question here on, looks like, if we are listing a future date or at a future date, do we need to send any paperwork to Metrolist? Good question, Lourdes. So as long as your contract's signed and your dates are in here and your future on-market date is in the system, you're good to go. No need to send any additional documentation. Okay, you are welcome. All right, so primary showing contact type, you can get all that information in. By the way, you're seeing a bunch of orange legacy fields. Those are old. You won't see them in your system, so just try to look past those on my screen here. A lot of this information pre-fills from that APN we searched for earlier, so the square footage, the area, the district. Granted, this is a commercial building, you guys. I know it's not a residential, hence why the square footage is so high, but just the example I'm using for today. You can come in and adjust any of these fields if tax may be pulled through and there's a little discrepancy against what your seller tells you. You can do that here by selecting to the right of any field that you notice is maybe not recorded accurately. You can just come right down to the drop-down menu here and you can change it. Assessor agent fill, okay? All right. Moving on down the list, I'm just gonna keep scrolling just a hair, you guys. Just wanna point out the big things here, okay? All right, so garage spaces, stories, again, all these black fields, fill them in. They will only help you market your property to the fullest potential. I'm gonna keep scrolling all the way down to the bottom. Please bear with me. I apologize for this fast scrolling. There's quite a bit of stuff here, but I really wanna point about these last 3 fields here. Public remarks. Those are your outbound marketing remarks. So those beautiful property descriptions I've seen out there. Use up this space as best as you can. You have 1,000 characters to market your property with words. The internet is a big place. So the more key or the more buzzwords that can drive folks to your listing, the better. As far as private remarks or anything confidential that you do not want to be shared publicly, meaning that only agents and brokers in the MLS will have access to these remarks, you have 1,300 characters to talk about that as well. And then directions to property. There is a specific way that these directions should be written. So again, there's a link to the rule book as well as how to start off your directions. Okay. All right, you guys. So foundations of listing, again, just be as thorough as possible. Once you're ready to submit, you can click the submit button in the upper left corner. That will submit your listing. As you guys are entering details, I always encourage you to save as you go. You never want that situation to come down the pipe where your internet goes out and God forbid, you lost what you were working on. So just save as you go. It's good best practice there. If you're not quite ready, maybe you're still entering some details or you're waiting for some seller confirmation on a few items, you can save as an incomplete and exit. And today, let's just go ahead and, for this example, I'm going to cancel out just so I don't save this fake listing in the MLS. But remember, you will click on submit once you're ready to rock and roll. All right. On square feet, if we are using a trio, what is the best field to use? Give me a little bit more on that, Greta. Trio meaning an average, or maybe give me a little more and I can hopefully help answer that for you. And as far as the recording goes, you guys, everyone who registers for these webinars should have the email with the recording to them. But if you don't get it, I'll point out where all of our videos are so you can just access it yourself at your convenience. Thank you, thank you. So a report from the title company, like First AM Property Profile. If it's like an attached document situation, I can definitely show you how to do that, Greta, but I'm not 100% on unfortunately, I'm not too close working with the title end of things, more or less just the software in the MLS. So sorry, I wish I could be more of a help, but yeah, follow up with tech support. They might have a better answer for you. The other thing is, I'll show you guys in just a sec how to attach documents to your listing if you need to do that. Okay. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to go in and we are going to revise a listing now. I'm going to go ahead and do that through just a recent search that I've ran. I don't have any active listings currently, so I'm just going to pull one up here to revise, if you will. So hang tight and we'll come in here and do that. All right. Another thing too, you guys, is when you go in to revise your listings, you're going to do it from your listings tab itself. You'll be doing it from listings, view, revise your listings. And in here, you'll actually see your listings listed out, and you'll also see a pencil to the right of the listing number, just as I'm seeing here. And that is what I'll click in order to access the listing and revise it. Now, we're going to go through this list here, top to bottom. Some things you might not see on your page versus mine. Again, it's just due to my admin access. But as far as listing information goes, this is where you'll come if you want to go back into that listing information page we were previously at to modify any information. When you change status, here's the status information button here. You'll be asked to enter any pertinent information, of course, depending on the status that you're changing to. Here's where you can open, or you can add your open house dates. Of course, virtual open houses can be added here as well. Any caravan dates or broker tour dates. And here's where you can attach your virtual media. So if your listing has a nice Matterport or some sort of virtual tour, you can absolutely attach that here. As far as adding photos in, that is done through the View Revise Your Listing. So we're going to enter our listing, submit our listing, and then go in and revise to add our pictures. We'll click on Upload Manage Pictures to do this. And what will happen is it'll pop you into a separate tab here. And this is a nice photo widget, if you will. So I'm going to skip this video, but you guys can absolutely watch it. It's short and sweet, kind of walks you through how this works. But it's fairly intuitive. You'll simply add your photos in the upper right-hand corner. So get those photos. Maybe your photographer put them in a folder for you. Get them all uploaded. And then from there, you can actually take these photos, and I'm just left clicking and dragging them around. So I can move them and arrange them how I'd like. I could actually crop out specific portions of the photos that I need to. I can rotate them. I can even add verbiage if I wanted to, like welcome home to the Phoenician, for example, for this one. Okay, so you can jazz these up, get them in the order that you'd like them in, and then you're just going to save and exit. Okay. Again, today, not my listing, so let's just exit on out and not make any changes. Now, you can view your listing detail page. If you ever are curious what your listing is going to look like in the MLS, here's what it will look like. Here's your listing detail page. You've got, of course, some quick links down here. You'll notice some of these you don't see on all those listings that are not your own, such as SuperWeb showing activity. Facebook, you could share, promote your listing to Facebook, even tweet it to Twitter. And there's this check it button here as well that will check your listing for accuracy against MLS rules and county tax data. I always love to use check it when I enter a listing. There's another way to do this, so I'm going to just go ahead and go back to my list here, and I'll show you the alternate way and how that works. All right, scrolling on down, you can view property history, upload, manage, attach documents. This is where you'll come in if you have that, that hazards report, any sort of property features report, your PED forms, all those things I've seen in here, you can attach right to the MLS. You can see that this specific listing has had 580 agent hits in the MLS, meaning that agents have 580 of them, brokers and agents, etc., have looked at this listing through Prospector Plus. Now the client hits, these reflect those public sites that I mentioned at the beginning of training. Prospector.metrolist.net is our agent access. However, the two public sites, metrolistpro.com and metrolistmls.com, if people are looking at your listing through those sites, you'll see that number reflect here. Here's the quickest way to assign a lockbox to your listing. Your listing information's already here. All you need to do is click Assign Lockbox and get that lockbox linked right to your listing so that then you can access your showing activity. And even go into SuperWeb and run those lockbox settings, reports, etc. Now the last couple of buttons here, well, this last one is what I'm going to point out in specific, is this Check It button. Remember, I showed you this through your listing detail page as well. But I always suggest after you get your listing input, check it, literally. Just click the check it button. And what this does, you guys, is it's highlighting any items in red that may, underlined, be your detected violation. So of course, if something was a tax discrepancy and you changed it according to what your seller said and it flags, or you're seeing something in here that maybe just was mistakenly flagged, that's okay. Remember, this is just a safety net just to help you out, okay? So again, that's called Check It. And it will check your listing against county tax data and MLS rules. All right. So you guys, I know we talked about quite a bit and not a lot of time. I wish I had more time to talk to you about listings, but if you guys have any further questions for me, I'll hang out on the line for a little bit and I'll get those answered. And if you don't, I hope you have a great day. I'll see you hopefully at the next virtual training and maybe one day in person. Can't wait to see you guys soon. You guys, again, I'll stay on the line for you, but if you are good to go, I hope you guys all have a good, safe day, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks so much.